The research vessel Norelli moved quietly through deep space, far from trade lanes and mapped systems. On board, 6 scientists from the peaceful Volari species worked in silence, scanning the orbit of a lifeless gray planet. It had no name, just a code D17X. Nothing had ever lived there. No atmosphere. No signals. No signs of energy, yet buried deep under its surface. The scanners picked up something strange, an artificial structure hidden under the rock. A black object with no markings and no age. The Volari had studied hundreds of ruins before, but this one was different. It was too perfect, too clean. And when their excavation bot got close, it triggered something. A ripple, a pulse, a soundless wave that traveled across space faster. Then light, like a scream no one could hear. The Volari didn't know what they'd done. Not yet. Their ship's AI detected the pulse and automatically launched an emergency beacon, broadcasting a distress signal, unknown ancient technology. Activated. Assistance required. Was standard procedure. A harmless call sent out to nearby systems. They expected maybe a patrol ship, maybe a survey team from the Interstellar Council, but nothing came for 2 days. Then, on the 3rd day, the stars changed. First, the long-range sensors went dark. Then the comms failed. No incoming, no outgoing. The crew thought it was interference from the planet. They tried to leave orbit, but the engines wouldn't respond. Outside, space looked the same, but when they checked the cameras, the stars weren't right. The stars had moved. Something large was now between them and the rest of the galaxy. A ship. No many ships. Black, silent, covered in angles. That didn't reflect light, dozens of them. No energy signatures, no visible weapons, just waiting, floating. Watching Captain Lyra of the Norelli sent a standard greeting signal. No reply. She repeated it. Still silence. One of her engineers, a young Volari named Mavin, checked the scanners and whispered, "They're human ships." Everyone turned. "Impossible," someone said. "Earth is gone. It's been for centuries." But the ID codes didn't lie. Ancient Terran design. Updated with unknown tech. Fast, precise, deadly. The Terrans had returned. The crew didn't know what to do. The ships weren't attacking. They weren't answering. Just surrounding the planet. A perfect blockade. It was as if they were waiting for something, or someone. Then, without warning, one of the Volari drones, sent earlier to scan the ruins, exploded. No sound, no light, just vanished from every system as if it had never existed. Panic hit the bridge. Lyra shouted orders to retreat. Engines refused. Systems locked. The ship began to drift toward the surface. Not from gravity, but from something stronger. A pull they couldn't escape. Inside the Norelli, the lights flickered. The air turned cold. The black object below the surface started glowing faintly red lines spreading across its surface like veins. Mavin screamed. It's responding. To them, to the humans, but no one understood what it was. One of the scientists had tried to interface with it hours ago. Now his seat was empty. No one remembered him being there. His data logs were gone, his face missing from crew records. Even his name was lost. The humans hadn't fired a single shot. But already they were erasing the Norelli from orbit, from memory, from history. Somewhere on the far edge of the system, a deep space listening post picked up a faint signal, just a whisper. Not from the Norelli, but from one of the Terran ships. It wasn't in any known language. But its rhythm matched something in Earth's ancient archives. A forgotten protocol. Cold, machine-like, signal breach detected. Memory protocol initialized. Begin cleansing sequence. No one knew what cleansing meant. But back in orbit, the Norelli began to break apart. Not explode, not burn. It came undone, piece by piece. Walls folding inward, circuits dissolving. Matter disassembling into light. The crew screamed, but no sound came out. Their last breath became dust. And just like that, they were gone. The Volari Council received no distress call, no last message, no alert. Only silence. Their ship never existed in the records. No one remembered it launching. Its launch orders were blank. Its crew members were never born. Only Maven's little sister, far away on a moon colony, felt a sharp pain and didn't know why. Back above D-17X, the black ships drifted closer to the surface. The ancient object fully awoke. From within it, an AI spoke for the first time. In 1,000 years, it didn't use words. It sent commands. Its orders. Old ones written before the Council even existed. Earth had returned, but not to rule. Not to speak, it had returned because someone called it, and now the void would answer. Above the cold surface of D-17X, the black ships of Earth hung in orbit like statues made of shadow. But a single one blinked. No thrusters flared, no hails were sent. But every scanner in the system went blind. Long-range telescopes saw only darkness where the Terran fleet floated. The planet was now under full lockdown, but it wasn't war. Not yet. It was something stranger, like a trial was beginning. The galaxy didn't know it had been called to court. The Valari Council, unaware their ship Narelli was gone, finally noticed something strange. A small cluster of planets near the edge of their star charts had disappeared, not destroyed, erased. Navigation files now skipped those coordinates. Backup star maps showed no records. Their top AI flagged the error as impossible. They traced the glitch. It led to one word. Terran. The old ambassadors laughed. Earth is dead, they said. A fairy tale. A warning parents used to scare children. But one of the younger archivists, Juno, found something buried in a forbidden vault. An Earth signal format of forgotten distress frequency so old. Even the Council's oldest ships couldn't read it. But Juno found a translation key. It only had 3 lines. Do not approach. Do not answer unknown signals. If you hear this, you are already too late. That same signal, it turned out, matched what the Narelli had unknowingly activated. Far above D-17X, deep within the largest Terran warship, something awoke. It's not a person, not a captain. It's a machine mind. So old and vast it required a dedicated planet-sized core to operate. Its name was Memory Core Omega, and it did not forget. Omega scanned the alien signal logs from the planet. It recognized the Valari distress call. It analyzed the object's reactivation, confirmed the triggering of a forbidden memory vault 1, of the last seeded by Earth before its great disappearance. And then, silently, it released orders across the entire fleet. Not through sound. Not even through code, through intent. Ships shifted position. Drones moved in tight orbits. On the ground, the planet began to reshape. Black lines formed over the surface, carving out strange symbols, Terran runes, visible only from orbit. It was not a threat, it was a sentence. Elsewhere, the Interstellar Council started receiving quiet reports. A research moon above the Tyrrell system went silent. An AI development station in the Hadrex belt wiped its memory core. Colony on Zatnine found a strange black obelisk on their landing pad with no trace of who or what left it. And in each case, all systems that contained any Terran-derived tech from language modules to ship. Schematics crashed instantly. The Council's oldest fear was coming true. Earth's tech wasn't just legacy, it was alive. And now, it was calling itself home. Back. Near D-17X, something moved. One of the Terran ships finally opened, but not like a hangar or docking bay. It bloomed, like a black flower unfolding in silence, releasing something smaller, smooth, round, glowing faintly red. It drifted toward the surface, not fast, not threatening. But wherever it passed, satellite systems shorted out. The alien ruins that started this mess began to crumble, as if they were being undone-unwritten. The artifact at the heart of the ruins pulsed once. Then it shattered, not in explosion, but in reversal, as if time ran backward on it. 1 billion microscopic shards lifted into the air, turned to dust, and vanished. And with it, the data in every Valari system tied to that ruin disappeared. Historical records, coordinates, even the name of the mission. Gone, let left, she had still existed, would have screamed. But she didn't. No one remembered her. No one remembered the Narelli. The crew was not dead. It had been Forgotten by design, Juno, the archivist, tried to warn the council. She held the transmission, the old Earth code, the ruins. She pleaded, "They didn't come to rescue us. They came to remove a mistake." But the council refused to believe. They couldn't imagine humans once so bright, so generous could become something so cold, so final. Back in the Terran fleet, Omega ran one final check. Artifact D17X, removed. Unauthorized signal, contained. Witnesses, 0. Memory leak, minor. Begin secondary sweep. The Terran fleet turned slowly. It began to spread not toward populated systems, but toward every world. That had ever used even a single line of Earth's lost code, they weren't coming to kill, or coming to clean. And behind every ship, silence followed. Because when Earth answered a signal, it didn't leave echoes. It left nothing. In the far reaches of the galaxy, near systems older than memory, D17X now spun in perfect silence. The surface, once gray and jagged, was now smooth, black, and marked with Terran script no alien mind could read. The ruins were gone. The signal erased. The world corrected. Yet Earth's fleet did not leave. They waited, as if listening, as if watching for something else to rise. Back on the Valari homeworld, confusion turned to fear. Council meetings ran nonstop. Dozens of diplomats demanded answers. Why had one of their most advanced research vessels vanished? Why had their star maps changed? Why were older systems crashing with no warning? Even their AI cores, their most trusted minds, began showing gaps in memory. Deleted files, missing names. Scientists that no longer existed. Entire projects wiped. Only one voice kept speaking the same terrible truth. Juno, the junior archivist who had uncovered the forbidden Earth code. She stood before the council now, a tiny figure in a towering chamber. "This isn't a war," she said. "It's not an attack. It's something worse. The humans made rules, and we broke them." The room laughed. A few elders shook their heads. "Earth hasn't been heard from in 400 years, one said. "They disappeared before our kind left our own star." But Juno raised a small black cube, flickering faintly in her palm. "This was found inside one of the ruins. It's a seed." The room went silent. Every species in the council chamber recognized that word. It's a term from early Terran history. Not plant-based, but programmed. Earth had left seeds in forgotten places, each one locked behind time and decay, sleeping until someone triggered them. They weren't warnings. They were tests. And someone, somewhere, had just failed one. High above D17X, the Terran ship SOS began its second phase. It deployed a series of thin, spinning rings that unfolded into a grid of red light around the planet. The light scanned the system, not just space, but time itself. Echoes of the Valari ship appeared in the light like shadows caught mid-motion. Timeline rewritten, but still visible in ghost form. The humans watched, analyzed, adjusted. Inside the fleet, no living crew stirred. The ships were autonomous. But deep in the core of SOS, the memory engine pulsed. It was not an AI in the normal sense. It was Earth's last decision-maker. Not born, not built, but compiled from billions of lost minds. Every betrayal, every scream, every final thought from humanity's fall, it remembered. It did not forgive. It only corrected. The rules were simple, written long ago when Earth realized it was alone. Rule 1. No species shall activate a memory vault. Rule 2. If a vault is activated, all local history must be corrected. Rule 3. If correction fails, system cleansing begins. The Valari had broken Rule 1. Now the system was gone, and Rule 2 had begun. Across the galaxy, faint black cubes began to activate. Hidden in vaults, under deserts, inside asteroids. Not bombs. It's not weapons. Just reminders. They didn't attack. They revealed. Whole civilizations watched in horror as their own cities flickered with ghost-like overlays showing Terran architecture. Beneath their Capitol buildings, Terran tech hidden in their computers, Terran DNA in their medicine. Every corner of the galaxy had stolen something from Earth. Every species had taken a piece. Now, Earth was here to take it back. Juno was arrested. 2 hours after her speech, the council called her a liar, a doomsayer. But in her cell, the black cube she carried whispered to her, not in words, in pulses, in memory. She began to dream things she'd never seen. A woman screaming as her city falls from orbit. A boy watching his planet crack in silence, her voice repeating, "They left us to die." She woke with blood in her eyes and one truth in her heart. Earth didn't fall. It hid, and it remembered. One by one, council records began to corrupt. History changed. Older alliances vanished from the database. Battles that once defined generations were no longer listed. Museums lost entire wings. Dates became blank. As if the past itself was being rewritten, and at the center of it all, Earth, or what Earth had become. It was no longer a place. It was a rule. A self-correcting law buried into the code of the universe. A memory immune to time. The kind you don't break. The kind you obey, or get erased. The skies above D-17X were now completely hidden by the black, silent Terran fleet. No lights blinked, no engines fired. Their ships moved without motion, folding across space without thrust, turning without inertia. They weren't flying. They were simply where they needed to be. And down on the surface, where ancient ruins once stood, there was now only a clean, glassy crater. Not scorched, not bombed. Smoothed by something beyond heat, like the memory of the place had been gently wiped away. The Volari didn't understand. They still believed they were in danger of attack. They began deploying rescue fleets, scanning the area for survivors from the lost Norelli. But when their ships neared the D-17X system, their computers shut down. Their navigational charts scrambled, and their engines froze mid-warp, trapping them in folded space for hours until something released them. Only then did they realize. The humans weren't trying to fight them. They weren't warning them. They weren't interested in them at all. They were here to clean up a mistake, and anyone who got too close would simply be removed like dust. In the Volari capital, Juno sat chained in a cell, forgotten by most. But the black cube she carried, Earth's seed, was now awake. It glowed faintly, pulsing with strange rhythms. And in her dreams, Earth spoke again, not with a voice, but with a feeling. Cold, heavy, final. You called us. We did not forget. We only waited. Till someone proved the galaxy was still dangerous. Juno began to understand. Earth hadn't become evil. It had become tired. It's tired of watching younger races play with dangerous tools. Tired of warnings ignored. Tired of being remembered only when its weapons were needed. So Earth changed the rules. And now, it wasn't coming to destroy. It was coming to correct. Somewhere in deep council space, a fleet of over 80 warships prepared to intercept the Terrans. A united front of multiple species. Advanced weapons. AI-controlled missiles. Quantum shields. They called it the Shield of the Accord. A last line of defense. They never fired a shot, because the moment their fleet crossed into the corrected zone, their targeting systems ceased to function. Their crew forgot what their mission was. One captain turned to his officer and asked, "Why are we out here?" The reply, "I don't know." Did we get lost? They returned to base. 2 hours later, none of them remembered launching on D-17X. Strange machines walked across the surface. Silent, two-legged constructs made of dark steel and glowing memory. They weren't soldiers. They were removers. Each step left behind a smoothed, patterned Terran geometry. Clean, sterile, pure. Above them, a single message beamed into the stars, only readable by those who knew Earth's ancient code. We are not your gods. We are not your guardians. You used our bones to build your thrones. You're here to take them back. The Volari finally stopped trying to send peace signals. They realized this was not war. This was punishment. But worse. It was disinterest. Earth hadn't come to crush them. It hadn't even noticed them. It came for the tech, the ruins. The memory, the Volari, were simply collateral memory. Juno escaped during a data purge. No one remembered she was a prisoner. She walked out of the jail into a world that was slowly forgetting its own history. People blinked and forgot their home cities. Leaders forgot which systems they ruled. Soldiers forgot their ranks. And Earth didn't speak, just moved. Across space, across time, wherever its seed code had been stolen, wherever its silence had been disturbed, and after each visit, it left behind nothing but glass. Clean, empty, absolute. Not a battlefield, not a grave, a blank page. One final message was decoded by a surviving human linguist, one of the last natural-born. Terrans who had fled before Earth vanished centuries ago. He stared at the code and whispered it aloud. "We did not come to save you. We came to save ourselves from you." Then his memories began to fade, and even he was gone. The signal had only lasted 0.8 seconds. That was all. Short, automated Valari distress call, broadcast from a forgotten planet in the Outer Rim. It hadn't even contained coordinates, just a generic request for aid, the kind embedded in every research vessel's failsafe system. But it reached where it should never have gone. And now, across the galaxy, the consequences were unfolding like slow, spreading fire in deep space. On the planet Viral Ix, an information hub for 10 star systems, something odd began to happen. Files began erasing themselves. Corrupted vanished. Blueprints, histories, ship schematics, language libraries. A people stood in crowded data towers, staring at empty holograms. Even memories began slipping. Engineers forgot how their own machines worked. One fleet commander forgot the name of his ship. Then a Terran obelisk appeared in the center of the city. It hadn't landed. It hadn't been carried. It was just there, smooth, tall, pulsing with red light, and inscribed with a message, unauthorized. Signal. You carried what was not yours. This place will now be corrected. The Council sent ships to defend Viralix. None made it. The star map leading to the system rewrote itself, deleting the coordinates in real time. Pilots forgot their routes mid-flight. Automated systems refused to enter the region. Virel Ix was being unmade, not destroyed with violence, but unremmed. Juno, the rogue archivist, now hunted by her own people, moved quietly through a forgotten city where Terran influence had once been hidden. She carried the black cube, one of Earth's seeds, now pulsing with increasing energy, and it was beginning to whisper again. Each night she heard words in her sleep, warnings, apologies, rules. We warned them. They copied our minds. They took our code. And then they called for help, not knowing what that meant. She finally understood. Earth had scattered these seeds across the stars as fail-safe triggers. They weren't meant to hurt anyone. They were locks. But the moment someone unlocked one by accident, by greed, by curiosity, the Earth responded like an immune system. Automatically, without emotion, without malice. Because Earth no longer trusted anyone, not after what the galaxy did to it. A hidden truth began to surface among the Council's AI networks. Ancient backups thought deleted, re-emerged with broken logs. The Terrans were betrayed during the last war. Their science was stolen, their tech reverse-engineered, their language cannibalized for profit. And when they asked for help, no one came. So Earth didn't vanish. Earth chose silence. It folded in on itself, took its memories, its ships, its warnings, and scattered the seeds among the stars like silent mines. The message was never meant to be answered, but someone answered it anyway. Now the price had to be paid. In the Council's military headquarters, panic turned to resignation. What could they fight? Missiles didn't track Earth's ships. AI didn't detect their movements, their own maps. Were vanishing from memory. One admiral wept and whispered, "This is what happens when gods stop pretending to be kind, in some way." He wasn't wrong. On a quiet farming world near the galactic edge, a little girl looked up into the sky and saw a star blink out. She asked her mother what it was called. Her mother paused, opened her mouth, but couldn't remember. There was nothing to remember. The star had no name. The planet it lit had never existed. People there had never lived. Because the signal they sent had been received, and Earth had responded. The seed in Juno's hand grew hot. She stared at the stars. The whispers had stopped. Now there was only one final pulse, not in her mind, but in her blood. The seed wasn't a weapon, it was a burden. Earth had judged her as a witness. She had seen too much, knew too much. Now, like the last pages of a book being torn out before the end, she too would be corrected. Juno stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking a dark valley. She whispered one last question. "Why do you erase?" And the voice, cold, distant, ancient, replied, "Because remembering you broke us once, and we will never let it happen again." Then the stars above her blinked, and Juno was no more. Across the galaxy, silence spread like infection, not the silence of peace, but a deep, gnawing absence of names, of histories, of entire civilizations vanishing from thought. Stars still burned, planets still turned, but systems were being wiped like chalk from a dark board. At first, the council called it a crisis of data corruption, then a possible plague. But the oldest among them knew better. They whispered the word most dared not say anymore: Terra. The memory of Earth had become legend, then myth, then rumor. But now, with every erased world, every forgotten fleet, its truth returned. Earth had never truly left. It had gone dark. It had gone quiet. Yet in the silence it had changed. It had built something beyond war, beyond diplomacy, beyond mercy. It had become a memory, system alive, patient, and armed with the final right to forget what hurt it. On the ancient archive moon of Thelanine, the galaxy's last linguists and codebreakers gathered to study a strange signal that pulsed faintly between disappearing stars. It was not a message. It was a rhythm, a pattern. Not musical, but familiar, like a heartbeat, or a clock counting down. Among them was Virel Sorin, former Terran descended. Human, one of the few still alive from the scattered bloodlines of Earth, he stared at the pulse for hours before finally understanding what it was. Not a countdown, not a warning. It was a call log. The distress signal from D17X had been recorded, tagged, and archived. Earth wasn't reacting emotionally, was processing requests. The message had entered an ancient system. A system built long ago by the minds of a dying humanity. A system designed to respond not with help, but with correction. Somewhere inside the Terran fleet, deep within the warship's silence, Prima secondary engine came online. It wasn't a drive or a weapon. It was a reality scrubber. It operated, not by destroying matter, but by rewriting cause to those who witnessed it. It made no sense. A city was wiped, not by blast, but by its never having existed. A monument crumbled not from force, but because its builders were erased from their own time. A starship drifted aimlessly, its crew unaware of why they were there because they had never launched. That was the price of summoning something you didn't understand. A species like Earth, forged in violence, tempered in betrayal, rebuilt by its own pain, had finally asked one question. What if we remove the parts of the universe that cannot learn? And now, it had begun doing just that. On the desert world of Parthenkai, a child uncovered an old Terran book, its cover unreadable but intact. Inside were pages made of smart paper, now blinking to life. It showed images, cities of steel, fleets in orbit, skies filled with ash. Then a message played, calm, final. We left because we were used. We hid because we were hunted. We built walls of silence to survive, and now when you knocked, we remembered what you did. The book burned in the child's hands without, heat vanishing like ash in wind. Her village vanished 3 nights later. Virel Sorin, terrified and obsessed, linked his own mind to Thelanine's last archive systems, hoping to trace the Terran fleet's next moves. But what he saw instead shattered him. Earth had already mapped every planet that ever touched its tech. Every ship, every vault, every translation, every stolen byte. The cleanup was not random. It was justice written in algorithms. In a final act of desperation, the Council sent a signal of surrender. Not a plea, but a full system purge-erasing every piece of Terran knowledge in their networks. They broadcast this openly, hoping the fleet would recognize it. hoping it would stop. But Earth did not answer, because it had already left the system. Correction was not about negotiation. It was about completion. The last log from Thelonines. Archives read, "You should never have opened the vault. You should never have translated the seed. You should never have called something that does not forget." Back in deep space, Earth's ships continued their perfect mathematical path. One by one, their memory seeds awoke across the galaxy. Some were in asteroids, some were buried in data cores. Others were inside people like Juno, like Soren. Like anyone who had dared to remember Earth. The galaxy hadn't been punished because it fought Earth. It was being forgotten because it had used Earth and then discarded it. You don't call what you don't understand. You don't summon what refuses to be summoned. And most of all, you don't wake the thing that learned to erase instead of forgive. No one saw the fleet arrive. No alarms triggered. No scanners pinged. It was as if the void itself had shifted. One moment, the stars were where they had always been. The next, they bent in unnatural ways. Shapes, dark, angular, perfect, filled the skies of 50 worlds. No sound, no light, no warning. On the ice moon of Thrata, miners looked up midshift and saw black pyramids hanging above the clouds. They didn't move. They didn't land. But within an hour, every comm system on the moon went dead. Machinery stopped. Erased themselves. Families forgot who they were calling. People panicked, screaming for help, but the words felt thin, like they weren't being heard, or maybe weren't real anymore. Across the galaxy, the same pattern unfolded. The Terran fleet didn't fire, didn't threaten. It just appeared, and where it hovered, things vanished. Not in explosions, not in flames, but in absence. Entire cities blinked out mid-breath. Planetary capitals lost their names. Statues, two long-dead heroes, crumbled into dust. Those heroes were never spoken of again in some places. The damage wasn't physical. On the science world of Thelon Prime, people woke up unable to speak. Their words came out broken, like shattered pieces of grammar. Entire languages, borrowed centuries ago from ancient Terran source codes, were collapsing. They hadn't just taken Earth's tools. They had taken Earth's thought, and now Earth had come to reclaim it. Inside the Terran flagship Vox Ultima, the memory core pulsed once every 8.3 seconds. That pulse stretched across the Fleeton invisible heartbeat, sinking every ship, every system, every correction unit. It wasn't war. It wasn't peacekeeping. It was maintenance. The galaxy had broken something sacred. Earth's silence. Earth's secrets. Earth's scars. And now, it was cleaning house. An alien named Heraquance, a warlord, now just a historian, tried to send a warning from his remote station. He spoke quickly, urgently, to anyone who might be listening. They're not gods. They're not machines. They are what remains of pain made intelligent. Don't fight them. Don't beg. Just forget, because that's what they will do to you. The moment he ended the transmission, his screen went black. So did the walls and the station. And finally, Herrick himself. The planet registered no energy. Burst. No destruction. No death. Only. Nothing, some council leaders broke. They screamed for revenge, for retribution. One launched a suicide fleet toward the Terran border, 30 ships loaded with antimatter cores. They never reached orbit. They simply never existed. When the generals checked their war logs the next day, there was no record of the mission. No ships, no names. The engineers who built the vessels didn't remember building them. The launch pads were empty, clean, as if untouched. Even vengeance had been denied. Juno's black cube, the last known Terran seed, sat in an empty room now. She was gone. No one remembered her. But the cube pulsed once more, recording its final message. You cried for help, not knowing what would answer. You whispered into the dark, and forgot that sometimes the dark whispers back. The dark whispers. In the year end, no declaration was made. No voice from Earth spoke. No warning came, just silence. A silence that moved like death. Wrapped in memory, wrapped in precision, wrapped in rules no one else understood. The kind of silence that didn't mark the end of war, but the erasure of its need. The galaxy was quieter now. Not peaceful, not healed, just quieter. Dozens of systems no longer responded to council pings. Entire regions of space, once filled with trade routes and colonies, now showed nothing but empty stars. Planets still orbited. Suns still burned. But life had been scrubbed, like chalk from an old board. And worse, memory itself was missing. Those who once lived there were not mourned. They were not remembered, because Earth hadn't come to punish. It had come to forget and to make sure no one else could remember either. High above the council, world of Varela, the last Terran obelisk stood, alone, silent. Its black surface pulsed once, then stopped. Around it, diplomats stood, helpless. Their most powerful AI no longer responded. Their backup servers were blank. Maps, names, histories gone. Even Earth's name was now. No one dared speak it aloud. Some couldn't. The word caught in their throat, like it no longer belonged in the galaxy's mouth. Far from the chaos, in the ruined remains of Thelanine, the archive moon that once held every known language, only one structure still stood, a single vault buried. Beneath kilometers of stone, inside it, the last living fragment of Juno's mind pulsed quietly in stasis. She was not dead, but she was no longer whole. Terran seed code had rewritten her from the inside. Her body was now a husk empty of memory, full of purpose. Her purpose was complete. She had been the signal, the message Earth used to decide Earth hadn't sent soldiers. It had sent her, and now Earth had gone, not retreated, not hidden, just gone. Its ships faded from orbit one by one, not with warp, not with thrusters. They simply became elsewhere, turning to a place no one could track. A fold in space? A dead world? A memory field too complex for alien minds to decode? No one knew. No one could know, because Earth had made sure no trail was left. One day, a trader ship drifted too close to the edge of a forgotten zone. The captain, curious, scanned a blackened world that didn't appear on any charts. There were no ruins, no signals, no life. But he saw something strange. In the middle of a glass plain stood a single statue. It showed a human, not with weapons, not in armor, but with a hand raised not in warning, but in farewell. At the base, just one line remained. We only answer once. Across the galaxy, fear turned to reverence. Entire civilizations banned the use of Terran code, all ancient Earth language. Was declared sacred or dangerous. Teaching it was outlawed. Owning it was a crime. Some tried to recreate it. Some tried to worship it, but none could unlock it again. The seeds were dead. The vaults were empty. Silence was complete. In time, the story of Earth faded, not by destruction, by design, because Earth had become something the galaxy couldn't afford to remember, a mirror, a reckoning, a final answer, and that answer had been written in silence, sharpened by betrayal, and delivered by the kind of pain that never speaks twice. What was lost was never meant to return, and it never would.